Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't watched the last couple of videos, I encourage you right off the bat to go and watch those before you start this video, and that will help you. If you get into this video, that'll help you understand the layout, because there's some questions and some answers that were before, some terminology that'll set you up and get you in the right mindset for this video. What we're talking about today, guys, is we are talking about when you see me designing these transition areas. Transition areas, real short, are what we send the deer 365 degrees around your property, up to 20 feet. They could be, we have to build them up to 20 feet wide to let the sunlight into the ground. On the transition is where all of your amenities lay. Your food plots, your licking branches, your water holes, your mineral, all of that is on there. When we refer to corridors, just to touch on that real quick, when we refer to a corridor, I refer to a corridor as, and this is nothing against anybody else, guys, that uses these terms together, but I like to separate them, and it really helps. I learned years ago, it helps you guys and it helps everybody involved. So a corridor has something to do with bedding, whether it's a buck cruising corridor that we're going to touch on today, whether that's a doe bedding corridor, that's inside of a doe bedding area. The buck cruising relates to bedding because it's scent checking. It's promoting a line of travel that the bucks are able to scent check a doe bedding area. And then you also have the buck bedding corridor. The buck bedding corridor is what leaves the point of impact and it goes out to a buck bedding pocket, to a destination internal of the property, into the core of the property. So you have those three terms, and that was all covered on the video, hence the reason I had recommended that you go and watch that so you get the terminology correct, and then we lead into this. Because what it sets up, guys, is there was a viewer on the other night that actually asked this question about just exactly what we're going to cover on this video. He asked the question, they asked the question, doesn't the wind in that situation, isn't the wind in your favor but not in the favor of the buck? So what is going to, what helps him, or what promotes him to use that? He's not going to use that that line of travel or that buck cruising corridor that you're speaking of when the wind is coming from the, or not coming from the doe bedding area to him. Well, so to answer that, you are 100% correct. This is why we're answering this through this video, is it sets up, that design sets up your potential down the transition, not at the food plot. So the only way that you're going to hunt behind the food plot when that is when that buck cruising corridor is in there is behind your doe bedding, like we want to be, but you would have to only hunt that on an internal rut stand only, and we're going to talk about that in future videos about how you pull that off. But that's a very, very touchy deal. So in order to have it right for you and right for him, that creates an internal rut stand. Separate video, separate mentality, and we'll cover that on an upcoming video. But what I'm doing today, guys, is I'm talking about how that sets up your success down the transition, and is there a way to have a buck cruising corridor and a transition all in one? And the answer to that is yes. So we are going to touch on that real quick. So to finish on that point, that that viewer had asked that question, and I get that question a lot. So yes, if you are in the stand down here, this is a blown out version of what we're going to talk about tonight, but where this comes together is your transition is part of your food plot, and the buck cruising corridor is so the bucks can use that to scent check the bedding area. Where they meet out here is our point of impact, where our tree stands are on the transition. So I'll show you some pictures of that, guys, so that makes sense. So it's where the buck cruising corridor meets the transition is your point of impact, where the stand locations, where your licking branches are. So we're going to illustrate this. I'm going to actually show you how to promote and get the benefit of having a setup like this, because on small properties we don't have a large amount of room to just explode this, and then you get so far internal that you're cutting away from your core, and it really takes from the core value as far as the bedding potential, the sanctuary. Yes, everything from your food plot in is technically the core, but you need some habitat other than a food source to house does or house deer in general on the inside of your property, not just not just food plot creations, right? And we can't label the field the entire sanctuary. So what we're going to talk about tonight, guys, is to answer that question: how do we get that buck to utilize this same setup on that transition. So he is using it, and it benefits him, and it benefits us as well, because that puts us in the right position. So we're going to start out here, guys, with the wind direction. You see I've got some stuff upside down here because this is going to get flipped in a second, and I'm going to show you the power of building these this way. So we're going to use this right now as the wind coming out of the, let's just use the north. Good illustration, north of the top. And we're going to put the wind down against this. So what we've got is we've got the Buck Cruising Corridor on the top, which is internal. We've got the, you can see the illustration of the hinge cuts here. So we've got the hinges coming up, you know, we're separating the doe bedding area, not by much, but a little bit, so they can still scent check this. But in this situation, we got the wind working against him. It's in our favor because we're down here hunting the point of impact, but it's not in his favor. So that's, as we go, this will all make sense. So we've got this barrier here, guys. What this is, and this is something we're going to touch on in a later video, we won't get into great detail right now, but we're hinge cutting away from the line of travel, no matter if it's the corridor, the Buck Cruising Corridor, the transition, you know, the doe bedding corridor, whatever that case is. We are hinging, or we are putting that debris interior, so we're always putting it perpendicular to the line of travel. Whether that line of travel is transition or a corridor, it always is never parallel, not a cattle chute. We are putting it perpendicular to that line of travel. So what this is, guys, so we've got a break here. So we've got this might be mulch, this might be, you know, 5 to 8 foot wide. It's really a personal trail back here that ties in, like we said, to our transition out of our food plot. But the wind is against him. He's going to be cruising down through here, so he's actually, as he's cruising along, all of the scent is coming from the north, so he's actually scent checking stuff in the core, he's not scent checking stuff in our creation. So how do we fix that? How do we promote it so he uses this, like we said, continually on that wind, and we can be successful and not just in the stand watching all this happen in interior of the core and not being able to do anything about it? And how this sets up, guys, so these are the cubicles. These are the snake trails that you hear me refer to as your buck bedding, or your doe bedding corridors, I'm sorry, internal of your doe bedding area. So these are the cubicles. So what these are is, we'll touch on this real quick, but it's every 20 yards if you're using match bedding or the hub style. It's the same theory. Hubs is laid out just a little bit different, but we're putting pockets, we're putting cubicles on the edge of the food source. So what by doing that is I'd like to do is about every 20 yards off the food plot, come in and mulch a trail back through here, or hand cut a trail out. So what this does is these are about 30 yards off your food plot, and these are about 30 yards deep, and they're about 20 yards. So either 20 by 20 yards or 25 by 25 or 30 by 30. Bigger the food plot, guys, the bigger that you make these cubicles, the further they stretch out on the food plot. Hope that makes sense. So so these are the cubicles. They're 5 to 8 feet wide, or these are the corridors, I'm sorry, inside of the doe bedding areas that make the cubicles. And these are, you know, you want to make them snake trail. I put sometimes on the illustration or the design, they're straight to get the, you know, the illustration correct for folks that you would need to go from the back. And what that is, guys, is just to touch on that real quick, for those of you maybe that are new to the channel or the terminology. Like I said, what you want to do is you're building in here, you're hinge cutting into these, separate video, but we're hinge cutting, we're adding thermal cover. You're making this very inviting to the does, and what that is they can take 2 jumps out of that doe bedding area and hit these cubicle, or these doe bedding corridors inside these cubicles, or inside this whole doe bedding creation, and they can get gone. Well, in this situation, it's exactly what they're going to be doing when we're talking about what's going to happen when a buck cruising comes in there to pull one of those does out that is inside that 28-hour estrus time frame. So what we've got, guys, is in order to get the wind correct for us and the wind correct for him, we have to be on the outside of this, down the transition, off from here. And you know, if the board was 8 foot long here, we would this would really make sense to you. So the transition comes out of the end of the food plot. The Buck Cruising Corridor comes out, and they meet down here at the point of impact, like we said. So the wind is actually coming from here to us. So it's working in our favor, but it's not working in his favor. So how we cure that is, most folks are putting a food plot, and I'm just as guilty as this as anybody. I did it this year. Because I didn't have time to get the switch in last year. This coming year, our plots are going to be this way for this reason. So what, you know, a lot of the folks do is we're planting these food plots right up tight to the the edge of the timber, or where we're building and promoting the doe bedding. Now, these black lines here represent some, mass, some regeneration, some greenbrier, maybe some autumn olive. Here in Kentucky, it's the red bud grows on the edge of the fields. So this might be kind of a soft edge going into the doe bedding area. That's great, but what happens is, and you want that, anytime you take these trees down, guys, it's going to let sun, especially your food plot here, a new food plot build, it's going to transfer up in here. So this illustration here is kind of the woody browse, or the shrubbery, if you will, the habitat that grows on, here. So this kind of creates a soft edge that helps densify these pockets. But where the whole thing comes together here is this, guys. What we need to do, and instead of bringing the food plot directly right up to the edge, what we need to do is we need to leave about a 5-foot, 6-foot gap between the edge of the doe bedding area and between the edge of your doe bedding area and out here to this pocket, or this screening that we're going to put in. So what I do is I usually mulch this or mow it with a tractor or whatever it is, keep that mowed right alongside of the field. Then what you do, so this is 4 to 6 foot wide. Then what you can do, guys, is you're creeping now towards your food plot. Yes, you're losing real estate in your food plot, but this is well worth it. So the smaller the plot, maybe you're not going to be able to do this, but long linear plots, this works great on. So what you do, like I said, guys, instead of planting the greens right up tight to it, we'd actually leave this 4 to 6 foot path through here, mow it. What that does, this becomes the buck cruising corridor part now out here towards or on your transition. So now when he's using this, he's scent checking all, because the wind is coming down at us here from the north. He's actually able to use this now and scent check these doe bedding areas. He's not going to do this out, he's not going to expose himself out here in this food plot unless there's screening. So the screening is very crucial. Like I said, it's a huge miss overstepped. I'm just as guilty of it as anybody. But if you really want to see this all come together, so he can use this and you can use this to your advantage, plant another 8 foot to 10 foot screen here of Egyptian wheat if you want to plant it every year. If not, switchgrass if you're looking for long term. Plant that out here and promote that screening wall, if you will. So it's another density. You're still getting the thermal value of that's like switch gives, or the Egyptian wheat. But what you're doing is you're screening off your plot now, guys, just as you would on the access down here on the brown trail on the bottom of the board, which most cases is we're transferring past on our fence rows, and because this is how a lot of these are set up from the outside in. And what it is this buck is able now to cruise inside of this with the wind in his favor on this mowed path, this brown path that we have right here, this mowed path, and he is secure from the plot. Without this here, this is not going to happen. So the viewer that had mentioned that you're exactly correct. That's not going to happen until he may use this because of sight, but he's going to manipulate the wind until he gets to the point of impact, until he is able to come into that licking branch at the right point. And like you said, most of the time now this is going to be on the other side of the farm, so you're always chasing it. But he's going to get himself correct on there, move up the transition, and then that's where those pockets that we talked about on the last videos come in, guys, because now he is under that pocket, which puts him between you and the pocket. So now the wind is correct for him and the wind is correct for you to hunt him, but that's down the transition. So in order for him to take advantage of both of these situations, to really explode this stand location over here, is to screen, give up some real estate and screen this plot, mow this right along the edge, still promote, don't take all your density away that's growing inside the cubicles of your doe bedding, but promote this mowed trail down through here just outside of the plot. Screen this with about 6 to 8 foot of screening before it hits the plot out here, and then what you've got now, you've got security for this buck to cruise while the wind is coming through here. And he will use this on the wind that's wrong for you. He'll be up here in the center. Well, you can't be here anyway. He's going to be scent checking that. There's nothing you can do about that at that point. But when the wind is correct, now you've given him the opportunity to fail. You've given him the opportunity to set himself up for the hunt, perfect for your hunt at the point of impact. So remember, wind coming out of it, coming down across the, or coming from the north, coming through the doe bedding area, and you're putting him out here now on the plot, towards the plot, but it has to be screened or he will not expose themselves. Very, very seldom will you find, unless it's a very secluded farm, low pressure, hunting pressure, well seclusion maybe around the plot in general or something like that on the backside, you can get them to do it, but it's not the norm, it's not the majority. So what we want to do is we want to give up a little real estate here to make that the majority, because now, like we said, he's cruising down through here, he's getting all the information, and now when these two come together, it's just here, and then you've got a third one coming into it as well, exploding the point of impact at your licking branches. So keep this in mind, guys. This is the way most of this is created, and that was a perfect question and answer deal that we just did there. Set that up perfect for that, and I'm glad you were asking those questions because it gets asked a lot. Now,